President, will come to order. I asked the committee to consider a list of 3,475 pending military nominations. Included in this list is the nomination of General Kenneth S. Wilsbach, U.S. Air Force, for reappointment to the grade of general and to be the Chief of Staff of the Air Force. All of these nominations have been before the committee for the required length of time. Is there a motion to report these 3,475 pending military nominations to the Senate favorably?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries. This executive session is now adjourned. But that doesn't mean people can leave. We now are in, the hearing is now in session to consider the nominations of Mark J. Berkowitz to be Assistant Secretary of Defense for Space Policy, Dr. Joseph S. Jewell to be Assistant Secretary of Defense for Science and Technology, Mr. James R. Kagi to be Assistant Secretary of the Defense for Mission Capabilities, and Mr. Brendan P. Rogers to be Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Energy Installations and Environment. I welcome our witnesses today and thank them for being here. The American people need public servants to step up and help us deter our enemies. We face a threat environment more dangerous than any since World War II. I say this at almost every hearing because it bears repeating. In such challenging times, I'm grateful that these individuals have answered the call to serve. Space is an increasingly contested domain. Peer adversaries, China and Russia, have been rapidly advancing their capabilities to challenge U.S. dominance and disrupt our space-based assets. As these nations invest heavily in anti-satellite weapons and electronic warfare, the United States must move with urgency to stay ahead. Mr. Mark Berkowitz has been nominated to serve as Assistant Secretary of Defense for Space Policy. If confirmed, he will play a critical role in developing policy. That policy must ensure our space systems are not only modern and resilient, but also fielded on timelines that match or outpace our adversaries. We simply cannot deter war with China if we do not have dominance in space. Our national security depends on maintaining strategic advantage in that domain and requires forward-leaning leadership. Dr. Jewell is nominated to be Assistant Secretary of Defense for Science and Technology. The department currently faces bureaucratic bottlenecks when it works to transition technology into fielded weapons systems. If confirmed, Dr. Jewell would help remove those inefficiencies. Additionally, he must ensure that our tech research is properly secured from theft by our adversaries. Research security is paramount, whether it's been conducted at a federally funded research and development center or at affiliated universities that work on behalf of the department. Mr. Kagi is nominated to be Assistant Secretary of Defense for Mission Capabilities. If confirmed, he will lead a broad portfolio. His office would coordinate experimentation campaigns to help integrate innovative weapons into the joint force. Those efforts will help us field new systems more quickly. I'd like to understand his views on how the department can more effectively bridge any interoperability challenges across diverse weapon systems. And finally, the department cannot project power if it does not have facilities to do so. Mr. Brendan Rogers has been nominated to serve as Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Energy Installations and Environment. If confirmed, he would oversee Navy facilities as the department implements crucial reforms, including the need to maintain a 4% plant replacement value by 2030. Again, let me say that. If confirmed, he would oversee Navy facilities as the department implements crucial reforms, including the statutory need to maintain a 4% plant replacement value by 2030. I think my ranking member will emphasize that if it needs to be. We must invest in our facilities so that our service members and defense civilians are not working, living in decrepit conditions. So there's a reason that we've put that in our Senate-passed legislation. The Navy is at a pivotal point when it comes to both privatized housing as well as unaccompanied barracks. The department has begun allocating the proper resources to these initiatives, but the assistant secretary position must hold contractors accountable for privatized housing. At the same time, the office holder must ensure safe and adequate unaccompanied housing. I look forward to hearing how Mr. Rogers intends to tackle these challenges. And with that, I turn to my friend and colleague, Ranking Member Reed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I want to welcome our witnesses to the hearing today, congratulate you on your nominations. I'll also welcome your family and your friends who are here today to support you, and also welcome my colleague, Senator McCormick. Thank you for joining us. Mr. Berkowitz, you are nominated to be Assistant Secretary of Defense for Space Policy. This is a demanding and strategically vital role responsible for overseeing space and missile defense policy, the Space Force, and Space Command. Both space and missile defense sit at the forefront of our national security challenges, especially as space becomes increasingly a contested domain. Russia and China continue to develop and demonstrate counter space capabilities that threaten U.S. and allied military and civilian systems. This position is responsible for guiding policy to ensure freedom of action in space, strengthening deterrence, and guarantee that space-based assets effectively support the joint force. If confirmed, you would also oversee policy of the President's Golden Dome initiatives, an ambitious effort to defend the homeland from advanced missile and drone threats. I would like to hear your views on deterring adversaries in space, your perspective on coordination between the Space Force and the National Reconnaissance Office, and your assessment of what can realistically be achieved under Golden Dome, given its scope, cost, and relationship to our nuclear deterrent. Dr. Jewell, you are nominated to be Assistant Secretary of Defense for Science and Technology. This is an important role at the intersection of research, innovation, and joint capabilities. If confirmed, you would oversee the department's entire science and technology portfolio, from defense lab and research universities to small business innovation programs and emerging technologies such as quantum biotechnology, advanced materials, and hypersonics. This position is also essential to sustaining the department's scientific and engineering workforce, the people who turn research into war-winning capabilities. However, I am concerned that this administration's workforce reductions and proposed budget cuts threaten to hollow out our labs, federally funded research and development centers, and university-affiliated research centers, undermining our technological edge. Dr. Jewell, I would like to know how you would shape this position to protect the department's science and technology enterprise, sustain its workforce, and defend our research base at leading universities. Mr. Kagi, you are nominated to be the first Assistant Secretary of Defense for Mission Capabilities, a new and consequential role created to better integrate technology, concepts, and systems to meet the demands of joint warfighting. This position reflects the urgent need to move faster and more coherently from concept to capability to stay ahead of pacing threats. If confirmed as Assistant Secretary of Defense for Mission Capabilities, you would develop and support future warfighting concepts, close capability gaps, strengthen engineering authorities, and drive engagement across the joint force. Through mission engineering, prototyping, and experimentation, your office can help shape the future of joint operations. Mr. Kagi, I would like to know how you intend to define this position, accelerate delivery of new technologies to the warfighter, and expand mission engineering principles across the department. Finally, Mr. Rogers, you are nominated to be Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Energy, Installations, and Environment. This position is responsible for the management and oversight of all Navy and Marine Corps installations worldwide. If confirmed, you will be challenged to improve the Department's energy resilience, military construction, PFAS remediation, climate adaptation, and environmental stewardship. In particular, you will need to ensure that both privatized housing and enlisted barracks continue to receive rigorous oversight to minimize the problems that military families and military personnel experience. And as energy demand grows, I would like to know how you plan to expand the Navy's use of non-defense funded mechanisms to improve energy resilience and reduce costs across the force. Again, thank you to our nominees. I look forward to your testimonies. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Reed. Senator McCormick is here to introduce Mr. Rogers. I think what we'll do is we'll hear that introduction and then hear Mr. Rogers' opening statement. After that, Senator Banks will introduce Dr. Jewell, and Senator McCormick will be excused if he desires to, and then we'll hear Dr. Jewell, Mr. Berkowitz, and Mr. Kagi. So, Senator McCormick, we are delighted that you've joined us today, and we're interested in hearing your introduction.
Great. Good morning, Chairman Wicker. Thank you, Ranking Member Reed, and distinguished members and friends on this great committee. It's really an honor to be here today to introduce my friend Brendan Rogers, a former Navy SEAL turned senior financial executive, as the Trump administration's nominee as Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Energy Installations and the Environment. Now, over the course of a 3-decade distinguished career, Brendan has demonstrated exceptional leadership in investment management, the investment world, and also as an officer in the United States Navy. He currently serves as the Chief Operating Officer and partner at BDT and MSD Partners, a premier merchant bank with over $60 billion in assets under management. There, his leadership has been instrumental in integrating two firms, BDT Capital Partners and MSD Partners, into a unified enterprise, driving exceptional alignment and improving financial transparency. He's really a visionary in data technology and organizational design, and he's overseen the firm's rollout of cutting-edge business processes, all good preparation for this important job. Throughout his career as a Chief Operating Officer and Investment Portfolio Manager, Brendan led operations, improved accountability, process integration, and cost efficiency, while always supporting business growth. Now, as relevant, before his time in the private sector, Brendan served 10 distinguished years as a Navy SEAL officer, rising to the rank of lieutenant commander. His military record includes command roles in Europe, Africa, and the Pacific, leading high-impact special operations and international training missions. He's a graduate of the United States Naval Academy, Go Army, and Harvard Business School. Brendan's career reflects a consistent pattern of uniting teams, optimizing performance, and successfully navigating complex organizations. He'll have that opportunity if confirmed in the Navy. His distinguished career makes him exceptionally qualified to represent the Trump administration as the Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Energy Installations and the Environment. And for that reason, I wholeheartedly support his nomination, and I encourage my colleagues and friends on this committee to do the same. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator McCormick. You're welcome to stay for the entire hearing if you'd like, or you can depart at your own pleasure and reopen the government for us, whichever you desire.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I'll get back on that government thing. Thank you.
Mr. Rogers, your opening statement, sir. Thank you for being with us.
Chairman Wicker, Ranking Member Reed, and distinguished members of the committee, it's an honor to appear before you as the nominee for Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Energy Installations and the Environment. I'm grateful to Senator McCormick for his generous introduction and to President Trump for his trust and confidence in me. I'd also like to thank Secretary Hegseth and Secretary Phelan for focusing on the warfighting culture during this crucial period. 3 things bring me before you today in consideration for this nomination: my friends and family, my commitment to our sailors and Marines, and appreciation for the threats we face. My motivation begins with my friends and family, whose combined support has shaped my path. Most importantly, my wife Bridget and my 4 children, Michaela, Tiernan, Keely, and Finn, are with me today. I want our kids to inherit the same freedoms and opportunities that I've been blessed with. Those freedoms are not guaranteed. They are secured by our strength and sacrifices of those who serve. I'm committed to supporting our Navy and Marine Corps warfighters and their families in the pursuit of the missions so our nation remains strong and free for all Americans. Second, I'm inspired by our sailors and Marines who face demands every day. My grandfather graduated from the Naval Academy in 1932 and served as a career surface warfare officer. My father graduated from the Naval Academy in 1957 and spent 30 years as a Marine helicopter pilot. I followed their path, graduating from the Naval Academy in 1990 and serving 10 years in Naval Special Warfare. The Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Energy, Installations, and Environment oversees a portfolio critical to how our warfighters live, train, and operate. If confirmed, I will tackle these responsibilities with urgency and resolve, focused on delivering reliable infrastructure, safe housing, resilient energy and water systems, and continued access to realistic training environments. Our nation asks a great deal of our warfighters and their families, and we must match that with unwavering support. Third, I feel a strong call to service, especially in these uncertain times. I've watched, with growing concern, indicators of a broader conflict emerging: escalating espionage, global competition for resources, attempts to restrict freedom of navigation, and divergent views of a world order. We are seeing intrusions on our home soil with increasing frequency, a sustained cyber assault on our infrastructure, and frequent drone incursions over our military facilities. These are not abstract incidences or distant occurrences. They are real and present threats. Our national leadership is responding, and I feel obligated to join that effort. Throughout my career, I've been privileged to work both in and out of uniform. In the SEAL teams, I operated across the globe in various challenging environments: sea, air, land, and subsurface, alongside joint service members and our international allies. These experiences gave me deep respect for the operational excellence and the need to be ready for any challenge. Mission readiness not only underpins strategic success, it is also a responsibility owed to our warfighters and their families. In the private sector, I cut through complexity to make investment and operational decisions while managing diverse stakeholders. 10 years as an investor taught me how to uncover operational and financial truths of a business, revealing overly optimistic narratives that are often presented. 10 more years serving as a chief operating officer taught me to lead across disciplines with distinct cultures and priorities and align them around common goals and disciplined trade-offs. In both roles, I learned that mission success depends on clear and consistent communication, as well as robust accountability and experience-based risk management, principles that guide my leadership today. My finance career instilled in me a deep respect for fiduciary responsibility, a principle that guides the decisions made on behalf of our clients. If confirmed, I will bring the same commitment to managing the substantial assets and budgets of the Navy's energy, installations, and environment portfolio. Smart stewardship demands innovation, fresh thinking, and cost discipline. If confirmed, I will emphasize readiness, innovation, open communication, and importantly, accountability. Much has been accomplished, but more is required to meet the significant challenges ahead. I will draw on my experience in uniform and in business and work in close partnership with this committee, Congress, within the Department of War, and with additional stakeholders across government, industry, and our communities. Together, we will strengthen the foundation on which our sailors and Marines live, train, and fight, ensuring the Navy and the Marine Corps remains a globally present, forward-deployed force ready to project strength and secure our national interests. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very, very much. Now, Senator Banks, are you prepared to introduce Dr. Jewell?
Yes, sir. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to introduce a fellow Hoosier for today's hearing. I'm proud that President Trump has nominated Dr. Joe Jewell to be the Assistant Secretary of War for Science and Technology. The threat of China overtaking us in military technology has never been greater, and we need leaders like Dr. Jewell to help us get us back on track. Dr. Joseph Jewell is a professor at Purdue University in my home state of Indiana, focusing on hypersonics. At Purdue, he leads the Hypersonic Mach 6 Quiet Tunnel Research Group and the Wind Tunnel at the Purdue Applied Research Institute. Purdue's partnership with Naval Surface Warfare Center Crane has helped make Purdue a national leader in hypersonic research and development. Dr. Jewell has also authored more than 150 published research papers in aerospace engineering and hypersonics, and his research has led to patents that advance our hypersonic capabilities. Dr. Jewell received his PhD from Caltech and his master's degree from Oxford, where he was a Rhodes Scholar. He has served as a subject matter expert on both classified and unclassified hypersonic programs, worked at the Air Force Research Laboratory, and serves on the Defense Science Study Group. With Dr. Jewell joining what is already an outstanding research and engineering team led by Undersecretary Emil Michael, I know that America will meet the gravity of this moment. Dr. Jewell could not be more qualified for this role and position. He will make an outstanding Assistant Secretary of War for Science and Technology. Mr. Chairman, I strongly recommend that we continue our work on this committee that we've already accomplished this year by quickly sending Dr. Jewell's nomination to the floor. We need him at the Pentagon ASAP. Thank you. I yield back.
Well done. Thank you, Senator Banks. Now, Dr. Jewell, we will be delighted to receive your opening statement.
Chairman Wicker, Ranking Member Reed, and distinguished members of the committee, it is a profound honor to appear before you today as the President's nominee for Assistant Secretary of War for Science and Technology. I am deeply grateful to President Trump and Secretary Hegseth for their confidence in nominating me to this critical role, and I thank the committee for the opportunity to speak with you today and earn your trust. I also want to express my gratitude to my family who have made the trip out from Indiana and Michigan to be here, especially my wife, Katie, and our 3 sons, Richard, Theodore, and Elliot Jewell, 10, 8, and 5 years old, respectively, and God's sweetest blessings in our lives. My mother and sisters, Suzanne and Elizabeth Jewell, and my aunt and uncle, Barb and Tal Day. I have in mind today also those in my family who have served our country, stretching back to the Revolutionary War, in which my 8 and 7 times great-grandfathers, via my dad Steve and grandmother Kay Jewell, Colonel Daniel and his son, Lieutenant Elijah Plimpton, mustered as part of the Massachusetts militia, down to my 4 times great-grandfather, Emory Plimpton, who during the Civil War was captain of Company M of the 4th Michigan Volunteer Cavalry Regiment. The company recruited primarily from Berrien County in southwest Michigan, where 120 years later, I was born and raised. The most significant formative influences in my life came in that corner of Michigan from my grandparents, 3 of whom served during World War II. Chief Petty Officer Charles Jewell, U.S. Navy, and First Lieutenant Richard Kramer, U.S. Army, who were in the Pacific Theater, and my grandmother, Dorothy Fiedler Kramer, who was in the U.S. Public Health Service's Cadet Nurse Corps. While I have not had the privilege of serving in uniform as they did, their example of service to family and country resonates strongly with me. Throughout my career in academic work at Michigan, Oxford, and Caltech, as a research scientist at the Air Force Research Laboratory, and now as a professor at Purdue University, I've been privileged to work at the intersection of advanced science and national defense. My research has focused on hypersonic aerothermodynamics, flight test data analysis, and the development and operation of uniquely capable hypersonic wind tunnel facilities, areas that are not only technically demanding, but also strategically vital to our national security. As an active aerospace researcher and educator, I have sent numerous graduates into impactful science and engineering roles in national security in the DoW, national labs, and industry, and have executed hypersonic test programs for the Army, Navy, and Air Force. If confirmed, I will bring to this role a deep commitment to ensuring that the United States regains and maintains its technological superiority over our adversaries. We are in an era of renewed great power competition, where nations, including the People's Republic of China, are investing heavily in disruptive technologies to challenge our military advantage. The Department of War must respond with urgency, clarity, and resolve. President Trump, Secretary Hegseth, and Undersecretary Michael have made clear that peace through strength is the cornerstone of American security. That strength must be underpinned by a robust and agile science and technology enterprise. If confirmed as Assistant Secretary, I will prioritize the acceleration of basic and applied research with relevance for defense needs in areas like hypersonics, directed energy, and artificial intelligence, while ensuring that our investments are aligned with warfighter needs and national strategic objectives. I believe that innovation is not just about discovery, it is about delivery. We must shorten the timeline from laboratory breakthroughs to battlefield capabilities. That means effectively leveraging the best of American academia, fostering public-private partnerships, and empowering our defense laboratories to operate with greater flexibility and speed. It also means holding ourselves accountable for results and ensuring that taxpayer dollars are spent wisely and to maximum effect. Furthermore, as I see every day as an aerospace engineering professor in my laboratory and classroom, America's technological edge depends on our ability to cultivate and retain the world's best scientists, engineers, and technologists. If confirmed, I will work to support STEM education opportunities, like the ones I received at Lakeshore Public Schools back in Stevensville, Michigan, empower early career researchers, and create new pathways for talent to enter the defense innovation ecosystem. We must inspire the next generation to serve, not only in uniform, but also in the laboratories and industries that power our defense enterprise. Finally, I want to emphasize the importance of collaboration. The challenges we face are too complex for any one institution to solve alone. If confirmed, I will work closely with our military services, combatant commands, allies, and partners in academia and industry to ensure that our science and technology strategy is unified, coherent, and mission-driven. In closing, I am humbled by the opportunity to serve. I believe deeply in the mission of the Department of War and in the power of American innovation to preserve peace, protect freedom, and secure our future. If confirmed, I look forward to working with this committee and with all stakeholders to ensure that the nation that my 3 young sons, Richard, Theodore, and Elliot, someday inherit, is the global leader in defense science and technology. Thank you for your time and consideration. I welcome your questions.
Are those Richard, Theodore, and Elliot right behind you, Dr.
They
Jewell?
are, Chairman.
Mighty fine looking young fellows. Did you say the Massachusetts militia during the Revolutionary War?
Yes, that's right.
And not the Continental Army?
The Massachusetts militia, as close as I can tell.
Great. That's quite a genealogy there. Thank you very much for.
And his ancestors were on the Union side in the Civil War, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely. Well, I certainly am delighted to be a part of that greatest union that the world has ever seen. Mr. Berkowitz, your testimony.
Chairman Wicker, Ranking Member Reed, distinguished members of the committee, it's an honor to appear before you as the President's nominee for the position of Assistant Secretary of War for Space Policy. I'm grateful to President Trump for nominating me for this important position. In addition, I'd like to thank this committee for its role in the legislation which elevated it to a Senate-confirmed position and for considering my nomination. Please let me express my deep appreciation for my wife, Mary, my children, Melissa, Margaret, Maria, and Michael, and son-in-law, Scott, as well as my parents, sisters, extended family, and friends for their love and support. Michael recently passed away and was very proud about this opportunity for me to return to the federal government. Our family has a history of public service, including my paternal grandfather serving under General Pershing during the Mexican expedition, both of my grandfathers seeing combat in the Army during World War I, my uncle's service in the Army during the Second World War and subsequently at Los Alamos, and my father's service in the Navy during the Korean conflict. It has also been my good fortune to have been guided by wise mentors and thoughtful colleagues. I especially appreciate the inspiration, opportunities, and counsel provided by Dr. Colin Gray, General Tom Moorman, and Mr. Pete Aldridge. I believe my prior experience in both the public and private sectors have uniquely prepared me for the responsibilities of the office for which I've been nominated, and, if confirmed, working with this committee to protect and advance U.S. national interests. Over the course of my 45-year career, I've served in directly relevant and increasingly responsible positions in the federal government and industry. In particular, I served from the end of the Cold War to the global war on terror as the executive in the Office of the Secretary of Defense, responsible for the analysis, formulation, coordination, and oversight of the implementation of United States and Department of Defense space policies. After departing federal service, I was an executive at a leading aerospace and defense corporation where I was responsible for strategy, strategic planning, and systems engineering and architecture analyses. I also served as a special government employee, senior advisor, and consultant to both the Defense Department and the intelligence community. America has leveraged its position as the preeminent spacefaring nation to advance our national interests, especially our prosperity and security. Indeed, space capabilities enable our armed forces to deter aggression, project power, and defend the homeland and U.S. interests. Unimpeded access and use of space is of vital national interest. As this committee is aware, the threat environment is extraordinarily complex and perilous. Our rivals, most notably China, have fielded and operate a variety of space, counterspace, and missile capabilities to undermine our historic advantages in space, contest our freedom of action, jeopardize our military forces and operations, and hold the U.S. homeland at risk. In this regard, I want to commend the President for providing the historic leadership to create the U.S. Space Force, reestablish U.S. Space Command, and initiate the Golden Dome for America to establish a comprehensive homeland missile defense. During their confirmation hearings, Secretary Hegseth, Deputy Secretary Feinberg, and Undersecretary Colby outlined the President's national security goals and the Department's key objectives. These included reestablishing a warrior ethos, rebuilding the military, restoring deterrence, and achieving peace through strength. I strongly support those goals and objectives. In his first annual address to Congress, George Washington said that to be prepared for war is one of the most effectual means of preserving peace. The Assistant Secretary of War for Space Policy is responsible for policy guidance and oversight of the Department's conduct of space and missile defense activities. If confirmed, I look forward to working with this committee and doing everything in my power to assure that U.S. space and missile defense forces are prepared to defend the homeland and prevail in conflict, to deter aggression and preserve peace through strength. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, thank you for your time and attention. I look forward to your questions.
Well said, Mr. Berkowitz. Mr. Kagi, your opening statement.
Yeah, Chairman Wicker, Ranking Member Reed, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. I am honored to be the President's nominee for Assistant Secretary of War for Mission Capabilities. I'm deeply grateful for the confidence President Trump and Secretary Hegseth have placed in me. This is a humbling moment, and I appreciate your consideration of my nomination. I want to thank my family for being here today, particularly my son Alexander, Reverend John Kelly, and Tish Kelly. I also want to recognize my many battle buddies and friends who honor me with their presence, many who I first met in combat or crisis responses around the world. I have spent my career at the intersection of technology and national defense. I served for over a decade as a U.S. Army infantry officer, including combat deployments in Afghanistan and the Middle East. And those experiences impressed upon me the importance of giving our warfighters every possible advantage. After my military service, I held executive leadership roles in the technology sector, delivering cloud computing, advanced analytics, and artificial intelligence capabilities to warfighters. Most recently, I served as a technical advisor in the Office of the Secretary of War Strategic Capabilities Office, where I focused on rapidly prototyping new capabilities for the Joint Force. This blend of frontline military experience and technology leadership over 2 decades has me excited for the opportunity to lead the Mission Capabilities Office. We are at a pivotal moment. The United States faces the most complex and challenging security environment since World War II. Advanced technologies are emerging at breakneck pace, and our competitors, especially the People's Republic of China, are investing aggressively to outpace us. As a soldier in combat, I learned firsthand that having superior capabilities can be a matter of life or death for the troops on the ground. As a technologist, I see how cutting-edge innovations such as artificial intelligence, directed energy weapons, hypersonics, and advanced space systems can transform our military if we can get those innovations out of the lab and into the field quickly. It's about ensuring we can develop, test, and field the tools to our warfighters faster and more effectively than our adversaries. If confirmed, I will focus on 3 priorities. First, accelerating prototyping and delivering new capabilities to our warfighters at speed. We must shorten the cycle from idea to impact. Success in this area means we won't just innovate in a lab, we will get technology into the field where it can make a difference for the men and women on the front lines. I will push the department to remove bureaucratic roadblocks that slow down transitioning proven technologies to the Joint Force, so that warfighters receive state-of-the-art capabilities on timelines measured in months, not years. Second, we must improve our development pipelines and test infrastructure to drive innovation at scale. It's not enough to invent or procure a single new gadget. We need to continually transition good ideas into fielded capabilities. I intend to work with the services and combatant commands to increase the number of joint prototyping and experimentation activities over the next year, so we identify and fix problems early and get capabilities in the warfighter's hands faster. The metric I care about is speed with credibility. How quickly we can prove that a technology works and field it at scale. If confirmed, I'll insist we measure and shorten both timelines without compromising safety or effectiveness. Finally, we must strengthen the War Department's partnership with the emerging defense tech sector. Startups have transformative ideas but get stuck in our processes. We need to be a better partner. We must be clear, fast, and predictable, so a promising technology becomes a funded pilot in months, not years. In closing, I am motivated above all by the obligation we have to the men and women who serve in uniform. We ask our warfighters to deter aggression and, if necessary, fight and win our nation's wars. So we must ensure they have every advantage we can give them. This is what the Mission Capabilities Office is all about, making sure that when our troops go into harm's way, they are the best equipped and best prepared fighting force on the planet. If confirmed, I will work tirelessly to maintain America's technological edge. I am humbled by the prospect of returning to public service, and I will approach the job with a mission-first, bureaucracy-last mindset every single day. Chairman Wicker, Ranking Member Reed, members of the committee, thanks again for considering my nomination, and I look forward to your questions.
Well, thank you, Mr. Kagi, and thank you all. It's now appropriate for me to ask a series of standard questions this committee poses to all civilian nominees. And I just ask you to answer all simultaneously with a yes or a no, and that will be the simplest way to get through these questions. Have you adhered to applicable laws and regulations governing conflicts of interest?
Yes.
Yes.
Have you assumed any duties or taken any actions that would appear to presume the outcome of the confirmation process?
No.
Exercising our legislative and oversight responsibilities makes it important that this committee, its subcommittees, and other appropriate committees of Congress receive testimony, briefings, reports, records, and other information from the executive branch on a timely basis. Do you agree, if confirmed, to appear and testify before this committee when requested?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you agree to provide records, documents, and electronic communications in a timely manner when requested by this committee, its subcommittees, or other appropriate committees of Congress, and to consult with the requester regarding the basis for any good faith delays or denial in providing such records?
Yes.
Will you ensure that your staff complies with deadlines established by this committee for the production of reports, records, and other information, including timely responding to hearing questions for the record?
Yes.
Will you cooperate in providing witnesses and briefers in response to congressional requests?
Yes.
Will those witnesses and briefers be protected from reprisal for their testimony or briefings?
Yes.
And a quick yes or no, do you commit to following Congress's recommended spending recommendations in the Defense Reconciliation Bill unequivocally?
Yes.
All right, thank you very, very much. And now we'll move into a series of questions, 5 minutes per member. So, Mr. Kagi, have you read the Forged Act, much of which is in the NDAA reported by the Senate?
Senator, yes, I have.
Okay, and then you understand that it seeks to make it easier to do business with the government using commercial procedures to attract new companies to the defense industrial base. How would you encourage these new companies and also facilitate putting them on a path to larger production contracts?
Chairman Wicker, the Forge Act is, in my mind, an important reformation for how we acquire new technology, how we engage with commercial industry, how we encourage some of our more innovative commercial companies to engage with the department. Certainly in the last decade or two, we've had fits and starts with working with the most innovative companies to bring their technologies to the department, harden them, ruggedize them, prepare them for warfighter activity and combat. So certainly, I'm fully supportive of what has been outlined in the Forged Act.
I think we need to bring them in, and then we need to help them understand as they are more flexible to get bigger and more capable of the huge job. Mr. Rogers, let me ask you about something I mentioned in my opening statement. We've placed in the 2025 NDAA a provision that would require the department to budget the commercial industry standard minimum of 4% plant replacement by the year 2030. Will you ensure that this law is enforced, and will you commit to this committee to report to Congress if there are those in the department that are knowingly not following the law?
Mr. Chairman, absolutely will follow the law. Importantly, the installations that we have are the base in which we power project globally, and the investment in that is absolutely critical. So certainly support and appreciate the support that Congress has been giving on this important factor. If confirmed, we'll commit to continuing to invest in our installations so that they are ready, reliable, and resilient, and follow the law.
It's just easy to take money in a tight time away from that and say, well, we'll just do it later. We want that to stop. That's the reason not only does the Congress put the money there, but we placed it in the statute. We want it done, and we want to make sure that we've got your back when you do spend that 4%. Now, Dr. Jewell, the Department of Defense laboratory infrastructure has been identified for over a decade as aging, unsafe, and inefficient. GAO says more than 60% of DoD laboratory facilities are over 40 years old. So, Dr. Jewell, if confirmed, what specific steps will you take to address this chronic underinvestment and poor execution?
Chairman Wicker, during my 5.5 years at the Air Force Research Laboratory, it's fair to say that we had exquisite, in my case, wind tunnels, hypersonic wind tunnels, surrounded by buildings that were often literally crumbling. Old buildings. So we had new technology in old buildings. In my laboratory at Purdue University, we have issues sometimes with HVAC causing issues with our electronics. So you really need a safe and secure and environmentally controlled laboratory area in which to do fundamental research and applied research. So if confirmed, I would make it a priority to get out into the field and visit the defense laboratories for which I would be responsible and advocate for any necessary resources that they might need to give these researchers and their facilities the infrastructure that they really deserve to sustain their work.
Thank you very much. Senator Reed, you are recognized.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Berkowitz, you've stated in published essays that the Undersecretary of the Air Force should also serve as the Director of the National Reconnaissance Office. Can you explain your rationale why you believe that the Undersecretary should also be the Director of NRO?
Thank you for that question, Senator or Ranking Member Reed. That's not exactly correct. I've written recently about intentionally thought-provoking pieces, if you would, to consider options for improving the efficiency of the department's space activities. I appreciated the time that we spent discussing this in your office. And what I'd note is that throughout much of the history of the National Security Space Program, either the Secretary, Undersecretary, or Assistant Secretary for Space in the Department of the Air Force was dual-hatted as the Director of the NRO. And for much of that time, both the Defense and National Reconnaissance programs were run very efficiently and effectively. And so If that is an option that's worth considering, I would support it if it was appropriate.
Thank you. Dr. Jewell, you pointed out how we are in a technological race with China, particularly. And I think we're sort of putting one hand behind or tying one hand up by cutting dramatically research in our universities, CDC and NIH. Biological warfare is something that is not a historic fact now. So how can you help reverse this trend of undercutting our civilian as well as our military research organizations?
Well, Ranking Member Reed, as an academic researcher myself, and indeed one whose research portfolio depends mostly on department grants and contracts, or those given by industrial concerns that are ultimately funded by the Department of War, this is an issue that's near and dear to my heart. And within the purview of the position for which I'm nominated, I am to oversee the Defense 6.1 through 6.3, that is the basic research and the first couple of levels of applied research portfolios. I think strong continued investment in those early stages of research and development is critical. That's the seed corn that feeds later innovations that can be applied to benefit for the warfighter. So if confirmed, I will certainly take a hard look at resourcing levels and will not hesitate to advocate for the resources that are needed, both within the department and through external collaborators such as academia.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kagi, you're going to be the first in this position, and can you give us a sense of what you perceive as the current limitations in the Department of Defense for developing capabilities, operational assessments, and then making the trade-off so that we can get in the hands of the warfighter the equipment they need?
Ranking Member Reed, we have incredible innovators inside of the department today, both civilian, uniformed services, and of course our industrial base that supports the department every day in developing new technologies, testing and prototyping, and getting out of the field. You know, that being said, we often hinder ourselves with our own bureaucracy, with overly burdensome rules and regulations that prevent us from doing experimenting and prototype at a more rapid clip. It's incredibly important that the Mission Capabilities Office works and partners with the services, with laboratories, both in the services and, of course, DARPA, and works alongside the combatant commands to ensure that we can prototype, test, experiment, get validated warfighter feedback back to our industry partners such that we can develop these capabilities at a much, much faster rate than we are doing today. And, of course, ensure that we have a successful transition to the services.
Thank you. Mr. Rogers, any doubt about your capability was removed when a West Point graduate recommended you, so I just want to make that clear. You've served with distinction in the SEALs. You know the importance of housing for the quality of life of service members, recruitment, retention, and one of the big focuses of your efforts, I hope, is going to be ensuring the high quality of both family housing and barracks, and your assurance would be appreciated.
Ranking Member Reed, it's absolutely critical, and it is our responsibility to provide clean, comfortable, and safe housing for both our families and for our unaccompanied, meaning the barracks. This is absolutely critical. It is both a readiness and a retention issue, and it is at the core of our ability to fight. And so if confirmed, you absolutely have my commitment to focus on this area, given the impact it has on our sailors and our Marines globally.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Reed, I think you're trying to point out that Mr. Rogers has a lot to live up to based on his recommendations.
Absolutely.
Senator Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, gentlemen, and thanks to your families for your willingness to step forward and serve this country. Mr. Berkowitz, in your opening remarks, you stated that the threat environment is, quote, extraordinarily complex and perilous, end quote. You've been working in and around space policy for most of your career. In this setting, can you share how the space domain has evolved in recent years, and what do you see as the most significant challenges that you would address if you are confirmed?
Thank you for that opportunity to discuss one of the reasons why I have agreed to come out of retirement to seek this position. Rivals view space as a warfighting domain and have taken steps to weaponize it. For example, China has fielded and operates a variety of space, counterspace, and missile capabilities that can contest our freedom of action, jeopardize our forces and operations, and hold the homeland at risk. The threat is dramatically different than it was during the Cold War. Consequently, if confirmed, my priorities would be to ensure that we have all of the capabilities required to sustain U.S. dominance in space activities and protect and advance our national interests. The challenges that I would expect to confront, if confirmed, are really twofold. The first is addressing the national security policy issues required to enable us to deal effectively and urgently with the pace, scope, and complexity of space and missile threats. And the second is the broader national policy issues to sustain the United States' position as the world's leader in space exploration and use.
Thank you very much. Much of the time, when we talk about the space domain, it can only be discussed in a classified setting, and I think it's important for this committee and also for the public as a whole to be able to hear some of the perspectives in an unclassified environment. So thank you for that. Dr. Jewell, space technologies are one of the department's critical technology areas identified by the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering. If confirmed, how do you see your role in ensuring the military has what it needs to face those threats?
Thank you, Senator. And I share your belief in the importance of the space-based layer for both sensing and other applications in our national defense. I think, in particular, with the genesis of the Golden Dome for America, we're going to rely on some of those space-based layers as well as ground-based layers in order to execute the sensing and custody that we need prior to addressing in a kinetic fashion any threats that may face the homeland. If confirmed, I intend to support research into space technology, and I think one of the most critical areas of research will be that sensor layer, and indeed how we can build that sensor layer in a way that's resilient, such that even in a threat-rich environment, we can still rely upon our space-based technology in order to maintain custody of those threats.
Thank you very much. Mr. Berkowitz, an underappreciated but a very vital component of the Golden Dome will be improving our ability to detect and track potential threats. As Dr. Jewell said, that sensing layer. Whatever combination of interceptors we deploy or develop, they will need to all rely on an upgraded sensor architecture. If confirmed, how will you work with General Gutlein, with Spacecom, with Northcom, and the services to ensure that we are procuring and integrating the right mix of space-based sensors into this larger architecture that we have?
Thank you for the question, Senator. If confirmed, I would expect to work very closely and collaboratively with General Gutlein and all of the department's components involved in the Golden Dome for America program, not only on sensors, which are a critical aspect of it, as well as potentially space-based interceptors, but also on the battle management, command and control, and communications capabilities that are essential to network all of the system of systems that will comprise the homeland missile defense. In that regard, the fusion capabilities and the sense-making capabilities are going to be essential for ensuring that we actually can engage and defeat any threats.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Fisher. Senator Shaheen.
Good morning. Congratulations to each of our nominees, and let me echo Senator Fisher in thanking you all and all your families for your willingness to continue to serve this country. Mr. Rogers, the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard is in the middle of critical upgrades as part of the Shipyard Optimization Program. My state of New Hampshire shares the shipyard with Senator King. I have to point that out or he gets upset. But the address is Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I would just point that out.
There'll be order.
Obviously, still an issue, except that we are all very proud of the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. And this project is a generational project to modernize the nation's public shipyards to meet the growing demand for submarine maintenance. Now, by 2030, Portsmouth expects to be able to double the number of submarines that are undergoing maintenance at a time. And that requires not just that maintenance for the submarines, but it requires installation resources to support the submarine crews that serve on board these vessels, along with their families. And Mr. Rogers, you probably already know this, I learned it recently, that public shipyards are not classified as home ports when it comes to support services for the men and women serving on them. And while the other 3 public shipyards are co-located with installations that are home ports, that's not the case in Portsmouth. And as we look at the challenges right now at its current size, providing housing and support services can be challenging. So if we're talking about doubling the number of ships that are being served, that's going to require additional support for those crews, for their families, for particularly housing. So can you talk a little bit about how you envision ensuring that we address this issue for our public shipyards?
Senator Shaheen, the SIOP program is foundational to the defense of the country, not just at Portsmouth, but across our other public shipyards. And so certainly, if confirmed, we'll continue to support that program as we move forward. You mentioned housing, and like I said, the responsibility that we have is to our families, to the crews, to their families, to provide that. If confirmed, we'll certainly look into that. As I sit here today, I don't know all the details specific to Portsmouth in terms of their requirements, but we'll certainly look into that because the requirement is that we support these families. And if we're going to increase the number of submarines, which is important through this shipyard, we need to also support the families.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Will you come up and visit the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard? I know that Senator King and I would be happy to work with the shipyard commander to host you in that kind of a visit.
Senator Shaheen and Senator King, I would, if confirmed, I would absolutely come and visit you.
Great. We will take you up on that. Thank you. Mr. Kagi, you talked in your opening remarks about wanting to strengthen the ties between the department and tech companies. How do you propose to do that?
Senator, so one of the things I've observed over the last few years is that the vast majority of American companies want to serve our nation. They want to develop and deliver capabilities to our warfighters. Sometimes they don't always understand from a threat-informed perspective what our key operational problems are. And so sometimes they go down one development path and building a product or capability that is exactly what we need, and occasionally these products and capabilities are not exactly solving the problem that we have before us in the joint force. If confirmed, my intent is to strengthen our relationships with, not just tech companies, but really just American industry and companies overall to make sure that they're aware of what our key operational problems are, what the joint force needs today, that we're providing them a threat-informed picture of what we are currently dealing with out in the operating environment and what we may be dealing with in the next few years.
Well, one of the programs that's been very successful in promoting innovation has been the Small Business Innovation Research Program, which encourages small businesses. They work directly with Dr. Jewell's nodding because I'm sure you've seen that. So I hope that you will take a look at that and encourage reauthorization of that program because it's about to expire and we need to make sure that it continues to provide the innovation that our military needs. Thank you.
Senator Shaheen, I'm thinking about going up and visiting that shipyard. Which state would have the better hotel rooms if I make that visit?
Of course, it would be New Hampshire because its address is Portsmouth, New Hampshire.
I do. Okay. Thank you for that input. Senator Rounds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, first of all, let me thank you for your offer of continuing to serve our nation, and to your families as well. As my colleagues have indicated, it means not only are we asking you for this, but we also recognize that it places a challenge to your families as well, and we thank you for making that offer. As a number of you have discussed with me when we met earlier, and I think I met with all of you except Mr. Rogers, and I look forward to having that opportunity in the future. But we've discussed, and I think you're aware of the fact that I'm going to be asking specifically with regard to the management of the electromagnetic spectrum. There have been attempts in the past, and we suspect that there will be attempts in the future, to force the department to vacate or share in a suboptimal manner the 3.1 to 3.45 gigahertz and the 7.4 to 8.4 gigahertz band of spectrum, and it would have real negative consequences for our warfighting capabilities, including homeland defense missions like Golden Dome and force protection for our troops overseas. Mr. Kagi, if confirmed, will you advocate for and defend the department's warfighting systems that operate on or use those bands of the spectrum, including the radars that will make President Trump's Golden Dome possible?
Senator, I want to thank you for the time you and your staff provided me in your office. And this is obviously an important topic. As someone who's built a number of space and ground systems over the years, I know how important it is that we protect and understand our spectrum requirements from a warfighter perspective, especially in S-band and X-band. Yes, Senator, absolutely will ensure that we continuously do a review of all of our spectrum needs and that we do everything needed across both the department and the U.S. government to protect that spectrum for our usage.
Thank you. Dr. Jewell, if confirmed, will you advocate for resources to be allocated to develop dynamic spectrum sharing technology, which would ultimately mitigate issues pertaining to spectrum usage?
Thank you, Senator. As you know, the lower 3 gigahertz half, the so-called S-band radio wave range, is absolutely critical. It's sort of the beachfront property of spectrum in that the wavelength of the radar signals are long enough that it passes through most weather effects, and yet short enough in that it can still be used to discriminate targets. So this is really a critical range. Of course, if confirmed, I would support ways to intelligently leverage and share that spectrum, research towards those ways, I should say. But again, the position for which I'm nominated, of course, is the fundamental research and first level of applied research. So while we pursue those efforts, I would want to be sure, if confirmed, that we don't impede legacy systems that depend upon access to the S-band and the X-band, for that matter, as they stand today.
Those legacy systems are the ones that defend our homeland, and they defend any place in which one of our destroyers is now located. Fair enough?
That's absolutely correct.
You reaffirmed that the Navy alone had indicated it's over $250 billion to them in perhaps 20 years to replace those same assets in those spectrum areas?
It would take a huge investment, of course, far beyond the purview of my office.
Also fair to say that China would love to see us have those particular bands impacted by the sale to commercial operators. Fair enough?
I think very, very true.
Thank you. Mr. Berkowitz, will you defend this department's access to spectrum for those space systems required for homeland defense and space dominance?
Yes, Senator, and I thank you for coming off the floor in the midst of a vote to speak with me. Access to spectrum is essential for the mission effectiveness of our armed forces, and if confirmed, I will be a staunch advocate for the spectrum requirements for our space and missile defense capabilities.
Thank you. Mr. Kagi, we discussed drone dominance in my office, and I would like to expand on that. The ongoing drone revolution has dramatically reframed the cost curve and operational tempo of warfare. What is the department's definition of drone dominance?
Senator, drone dominance is one way of explaining how we overmatch our adversaries through the offensive or defensive usage of various drones technology. And of course, autonomous systems and all forms of robotics are critical for us to be prototyping and experimenting with at a more rapid clip over the next few years.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to each of you, and thank you and your families for your commitment to service. To ensure the fitness of all nominees to serve, I ask the following two initial questions, and I'll very quickly go down the line, starting with Mr. Berkowitz. Since you became an adult, have you ever, requested, since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment of a sexual nature?
No.
Mr. Berkowitz will go down the line.
No.
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 Have you ever faced discipline or entered into a settlement relating to this kind of conduct?
No.
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 This is for Mr. Rogers. The Navy's efforts to permanently close the Red Hill fuel storage facility must remain a top priority. The water contamination crisis in 2021, which impacted over 90,000 residents on Oahu, severely undermined public trust in how the Navy handled the whole situation. So we need to continue to pay attention to the closure, make sure that it's safe, and there are ongoing environmental concerns that we need to address as the facility is closed. So I would like to have your personal commitment to see through to completion the transparent closure of Red Hill, which involves not only providing adequate resources and manpower, but also the close collaboration with state government officials and the community to resolve trust and faith with the military. And while this was a Navy situation, as far as the community is concerned, the military presence in Hawaii is so important that anything that any one of the services does, it pretty much impacts how people feel about the entire military presence. So I'd like your commitment that the significant closure and the after impacts of the closing of Red Hill will be a priority for you.
Senator
Mr.
Hirono,
Rogers.
the closure of Red Hill is a priority, and if confirmed, I will certainly commit to continuing to see the good work that's been done there. Despite what occurred, my understanding is the transparency in which engaging the community in terms of the podcast, the website, which has the testing, all of these information is important. Also, having grown up in Hawaii, first in Kailua and then Kahalu, I understand how not only strategically important Hawaii is, but how important it is with the military and the community relationship in Hawaii.
Thank you very much. And I also want to thank you for acknowledging the critical importance of PSYOP. And as you know, we have one of the four shipyard facilities in Hawaii. And of course, I invite you to renew your familiarity with Hawaii by visiting our shipyard. And as you probably know, the largest infrastructure project that the DoD, the department, is engaged in is the dry dock at the Pearl Harbor shipyard. And there are significant delays happening there with the dry dock building, and so that's even more important for you to see for yourself the facility. For you again, Mr. Rogers, the Navy recently released a draft EIS on the intention to retain over 8,000 acres of state lands on Kauai. This is often referred to as Barking Sands. And that lease situation is coming up for renewal, and we want to make sure that the negotiations that occur, as noted, how the importance of transparency, because there are significant cultural interests that are attendant to the facility at PMRF. So how do you plan to ensure that these negotiations regarding the renewal of use of PMRF is conducted in a way that makes sure that the community concerns are addressed?
Senator, the Pacific Missile Range facilities are absolutely critical to the defense of the country. It's a unique testing environment, both, as you well know. In terms of the cultural sensitivities, I also understand that there are cultural areas within this area that are important to the community. Early in this process that I'm in, I did get a chance to meet with Ms. Kalipi and the Hawaiian Coordination Cell, and will absolutely continue, if confirmed, to do that. Again, I understand the importance of some of the cultural areas in Hawaii. I also understand the strategic importance of keeping this testing range open. I also understand that it's important that we extend the lease. So we'll certainly do that in a transparent way, if confirmed.
Thank you very much. I will submit for the record other questions for some of the other nominees. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Hirono. Senator Tuberville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for your service. Mr. Rogers, our military construction process is a disaster. It's plagued by poor initial planning, cost overruns, delays that do nothing but cost taxpayers money, and readiness for our troops. I've seen it big time in my state of Alabama. You know, a quarter of the 598 MILCON projects underway in 2023 were delayed for a year or more. Something is clearly broken. If confirmed, as regards to the Navy, you have any answers to this disaster?
Senator Tuberville, MILCON's obviously a critical program. We're spending billions of dollars to support the infrastructure. And as we've talked about, the installations are the area in which we power project. And so getting that right is important. I mentioned in my opening statement the concept of fiduciary responsibility. I think that applies here for the dollars that are spent. That there's a collective interest in getting the most out of those dollars. So if confirmed, I certainly will be looking into this. The specific areas of interest are a couple things. One, what is really driving the premium that we are always paying in MILCON, certainly relative to commercial opportunities? I understand some of the drivers of that. I'd like to understand that more, and also welcome Congress's help in potentially changing some of the elements of the unified facilities criteria to maybe lower that cost. That's number one. Number two is schedule. And with schedule comes cost. Come from the commercial side. If you're building in the commercial side, you care about schedule, cost, and your reputation, and you manage those very, very closely, and specifically around how do you manage the risk of projects. So if confirmed, I look forward to spending more time with NAVFAC and CNIC on these issues.
Yeah, we've visited with the Secretary of War and several other secretaries and chief of staffs in the military, and they all agree there's a huge problem. So hopefully we can rectify that and help our troops and save some money. I know in our state of Alabama, we have gone to more privatization instead of MILCON. And so it's worked well in terms of speed and cost. Mr. Berkowitz, in 2020, the department released the Defense Space Strategy, the first and last report of its kind. While other reports have come out of the DoD on space-related topics, such as the 2024 report on commercial space strategy, it has been over 5 years since we've seen a department-wide strategy report. Are you aware of the strategy released in 2020, and do you believe the strategy should be updated?
Thank you for raising this topic, Senator. And I must say I appreciated the time to meet with you and your staff in your office. Given the time that's passed, I think it is entirely appropriate to review and update the department's commercial strategy. In fact, I would note that there are 3 commercial strategies, one for the Defense Department, one for the Space Force itself, and one also for U.S. Space Command. And if confirmed, I would want to review them and ensure that they are appropriate to today's security environment.
Thank you. Mr. Jewell, Huntsville, Alabama's major hub for innovations, hypersonics, space warfare, quantum computing, just to name a few. I don't need to tell you we're already years behind our adversaries in a lot of these critical technologies. What will you do to accelerate the testing and evaluation of critical technologies, especially as threats from adversaries like China continue to mature?
Senator, that's absolutely correct that our peer and near-peer adversaries have invested heavily in this kind of technology. We have a number of programs in the United States, such as MACH-TB, which seek to increase the pace of flight test opportunities to close that gap. But I think that we need to be vigilant with that, and if confirmed, I will seek to ensure that those investments continue to be made.
Thank you. Mr. Cagney, the most important part of the national defense is a warfighter. I think most of us agree with that. Most of us join this panel to ensure the men and women who put their lives on the line every day are provided with nothing short of the best to dominate their enemy. The junior enlisted service members will be the ones working every day hands-on with the capabilities that you give them. What emphasis will you put on the feedback from these young warfighters?
Senator, completely agree with you. The feedback we get from our junior enlisted, our NCOs, is really the most important, because they're the ones that have to take the capabilities that we give them into combat. And if confirmed, I'm fully committed to ensuring that all service members are represented in how we gain feedback on prototypes and experiments, and that the concepts and capabilities that we deliver to them are ready to go for combat.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Tuberville. Senator Kane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and congratulations to all the witnesses. Mr. Berkowitz, I want to ask a question about space launch resiliency. Cape Canaveral is ideally suited to provide the vast majority of the U.S.'s launch capacity, but it is important that we have resiliency in our launch infrastructure. A hurricane or some other disruptive event has the potential to derail space launch programs. Obviously, I'm biased toward the Wallops Island facility that's connected to our Navy base on the eastern shore of Virginia, but there's other launch sites as well. So if confirmed, how will you leverage the nation's space capacity outside of Cape Canaveral to diversify our launch infrastructure?
Thank you for raising that question, Senator. The United States is currently the world's leader in the international commercial launch services market. Frankly, I would commend the President for his recent executive orders to enhance our overall competitiveness in commercial launch services. If confirmed, I would work to modernize our launch infrastructure, in particular to make sure that we have the capacity as well as the resilience to meet the department's needs as well as the needs of all of our space sectors.
That's great. It's outside of the remit of this committee, but I would hope to see a NASA director nominated. There's been some controversy over that position in recent months. And you're right. We have such a capacity in the country that even rocket and space-related companies from other nations are now using U.S. launch capacity because they're enabled to hit orbits that they can't hit, for example, from New Zealand with rocket labs. So that's a big advantage for us. Mr. Rogers, I want to ask you a question. Your position is very important to Virginia, given the number of installations we have in Virginia. And I appreciate colleagues who've already talked to you about the PSYOP and about housing. I want to ask you about resiliency. A number of our bases in Virginia have some significant challenges with respect to sea level rise, those in the Hampton Roads area. Hampton Roads region of the United States is the second most vulnerable to sea level rise after the New Orleans area. There's all kinds of other challenges that extreme weather poses to installations, fires, drought, et cetera. How will you focus on these resiliency challenges should you be confirmed?
Senator Kane, again, I appreciate the time that you spend with me in your offices. Our installations have to be ready, they have to be reliable, and to your point, they have to be resilient. And resilient in the face of any number of threats. It could be Mother Nature, it could be man-made, it could be nefarious, it could be by accident. I think if confirmed, the critical component is understanding what the installation plans are, also speaking to our commanding officers, our senior enlisted, understanding the real risks, and figuring out where those risks are actually impacting our readiness to execute the mission. So if confirmed, the goal would be to work with the team to ensure what is causing these and what can we do in terms of courses of action against it, again, with the focus on readiness, regardless of what causes the issue.
Let me ask one last question of you, Mr. Rogers, about the PSYOP, even though it's already been raised. Just the size of the PSYOP investment is massive. Thus far, we've completed 45 facility projects totaling $1.2 billion, delivered 277 items of industrial plant equipment valued at nearly $650 million, but another 38 projects worth $6.5 billion are currently under contract. The scope of this investment is massive. How do you plan to work with Congress and other stakeholders to make sure that you're advocating appropriately for the resource levels you'll need not only within the Pentagon, but within OMB?
Senator, as we discussed, the PSYOP program is foundational. Understanding all of those costs, my understanding of both from public sources and other discussions is it's not just the dry docks, it's all the surrounding infrastructure, which is really driving the cost. To be able to support our nuclear Navy as a key leg of the triad is absolutely critical. And so again, it's understanding the facts. So if confirmed, I'll certainly commit to communicating, obviously, with Congress, with this committee, in terms of what are the facts, what is in front of us in terms of required investment, and why are we making those investments?
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. Senator Scott.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First off, congratulations to each of you. This is a great time to serve. We've got a president and a secretary that they're doing a fantastic job, and they're going to support our warfighters, and they're going to refocus the Department of War and fix a lot of problems that should have been fixed in the past. The president has a bold vision to protect our country from threats around the globe with the Golden Dome. It's this kind of groundbreaking thinking that will keep our country safe for generations to come. I trust that each of you share that vision, that you accomplish, and you'll work hard to accomplish President Trump's Peace Through Strength mission, especially as threats around the world continue to grow. Mr. Berkowitz, as President Trump's pick for the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Space Policy, you will be working with General Gutlein to oversee the Golden Dome project, one which you rightly point out is critical to our national defense in your opening statement. I'm a business guy. I've always looked at what the competition was doing and figured out how I could do it better. Competition is what makes industries do better and push each other to do better. It's a key to innovation, and it's a key to a healthy market. I'm a big believer in our space and defense industries being open to competition so that we get the best product for the best price. So, Mr. Berkowitz, as you know, the Golden Dome system is critical to our national security. Would you agree that we should do what we can to ensure the best products and prices to complete this project are on time and on budget?
Thank you for the question, Senator. Yes, I absolutely agree with you that competition is essential in order to get the very best capabilities into the hands of our warfighters.
So in your background, do you have examples of where you've seen that competition has worked? Have you in your background, have you done a lot of sole source contracts?
Senator, I've been involved in both competitive and sole source awards. In my experience, there are times when both are appropriate. Competition absolutely drives the various competitors in the industry to sharpen their hone their offers and make sure that they're truly providing the very best capabilities. Sole source awards are also effective when there's only one supplier who has the technology or know-how or can do it at the lowest cost.
So to that end, should companies be allowed to compete for the Golden Dome, parts of the Golden Dome project?
Absolutely, Senator. I think we should incentivize all companies traditional companies, new entrants, startups to compete for contracts as part of the Golden Dome for America.
So you wouldn't support a sole source for the Golden Dome?
Senator, I've been nominated for a policy position, and so consequently, I would not be involved in making acquisition decisions with respect to contracts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Senator King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was listening attentively, as always, as you asked the standard questions at the beginning of this hearing about the witnesses' willingness to come and communicate with the committee and answer questions. I'm concerned about the October 15th memo from the Secretary, which basically throttles communication between people working at the Pentagon and Congress, including this committee. And I hope that's something we can discuss and consider, because sitting here, these kinds of communications are important, but also several of the witnesses have mentioned meetings in our offices to discuss policy. That would be prohibited under that October 15th memo, and I think we need to, it's something we should discuss.
Well, thank you, and it has been suggested that memo was misconstrued, and it may need to be clarified. So thank you for bringing that up.
That's what I'm suggesting. Also, there's some confusion about what organization you all are going to work for. It's the Department of Defense. There's no such thing as the Department of War. I commend to you 10 U.S.C. 111A, 1949, which established the name of the department as the Department of Defense. So just want to clarify that confusion. I just want to be sure you know where you're going to work. Mr. Jewell, hypersonics. You're just the right person for this position, because hypersonics is a place where we've lost a lot of ground on our adversaries, and I really appreciate your background. One area I hope you will think about is not only the development of hypersonics, but the development of hypersonic defense, because we've got these $12 billion aircraft carriers that could be extremely vulnerable. So I hope that's part of the research and the work that you'll do on hypersonics, not only on the offensive capability, which we need for deterrence, but also defense. Is that something you consider part of your mission?
Senator, yes, and thank you for the opportunity to discuss in your office the finer points of thermal protection systems for hypersonic systems, which are, of course, a critical part of both offensive and defensive hypersonics. The defensive hypersonics problem, in many ways, is more challenging than the offensive problem, in that in order to hit a bullet with a bullet, so to speak, one needs greater speed and maneuverability than the target system, and also better custody, sensing, and tracking layers. Those are deep challenges that deserve continued investments, and if confirmed, I will certainly advocate for appropriate funding levels and appropriate areas of emphasis in the 6.1, 6.2, and 6.3 realm.
I appreciate that, and I want to emphasize a point that I think the ranking member made. The administration at the beginning of this year took really significant steps to cut university research. $7 billion, 6,000 agreements, I think it's 6,000, 4,000 grants, 600 institutions, caps on indirect costs. You've lived this system. I hope that you can advocate within the administration for the importance of university research. You're a walking example of that importance. So I again hope that you can be a counterweight to this impulse to cut university research funds.
Senator, I'm proud of the work that we've done at the university, and indeed that my colleagues do at other universities as well, and we'll seek to strengthen those ties if confirmed.
Thank you. Mr. Berkowitz, there was some discussion about the dual hat with NRO and the position at the Department of Defense. I think that's a worthwhile discussion, at least to the point of making it a much more closer coordination. We can't afford to be developing parallel space capabilities where there's overlap and the cost involved is enormous, as you know. So I hope you'll consider that. I hope you will continue your provocative thinking on that point.
Thank you, Senator. frankly just believe that we should be open to all options to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of our national security space capabilities.
Thank you. I'm running out of time. Very quickly. Mr. Rogers, one of the issues on enforcement, one of the issues on housing is enforcement of private contracts. We went into privatization in a big way some years ago. We haven't been very good at enforcing those contracts to the detriment of our military families. And I hope that's something you can pay some attention to, is the implementation of the requirements in those contracts for safe and adequate housing for our families.
Senator King, the keys to getting anything done in that business arrangement is the contracts, ensuring that they are stating exactly what is required.
It's one thing to have the contract, enforcing them is what I'm concerned about.
And then enforcing them, and then being able to be very transparent communication with the counterparty and to under exactly what's expected, and then enforcing them if it's not met.
Thank you. Mr. Craig, I commend your emphasis on speed. I think that's one of the essential elements. And that's a tall order in this world. The word speed and the Pentagon are not usually used in the same sentence. So please pursue that with all due speed. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Budd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for being here today and for your willingness to serve. Dr. Jewell, I've worked with Senator Peters and several other members to secure more funding for the U.S.-Israel collaboration on counter-drone and counter-tunneling technologies. So if confirmed, how would you expand this emerging technology collaboration, and which other critical technologies do you see as potential future areas to work together on?
Thank you, Senator. The distributed capability of tunneling or drones, the threat that we face, is really something that's of a relatively new nature, I think. It's something that can be wielded against the United States both by peer and near-peer adversaries and potentially by insurgencies and other smaller, even individual threats. One of the ways, if confirmed, that I would seek to enhance our capability, and I think some of the most interesting ideas on these kind of new threats or newly recognized threats come from small businesses. And so the SBIR and STTR programs, I think, can be critical in terms of getting more new ideas in the pipeline to address those kinds of threats.
Thank you. Mr. Berkowitz, if confirmed, you'll be responsible for international engagement on space policy and strategy. How do you plan to work together with Asian allies and partners like Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, to ensure that they're building robust space capabilities and that we're integrating with their systems?
Thank you for raising this important topic, Senator. Allies and international partners with shared values and interests are a U.S. competitive advantage. If confirmed, I would seek to work closely with all stakeholders to explore options for how our allies and partners could contribute to the defense burden, contribute to deterrence and collective security, and in the process, align our policies and efforts, as well as increase our interoperability.
Thank you. Also, Mr. Berkowitz, in light of China's rapid expansion of its nuclear arsenal, what's your assessment of the department's nuclear modernization plan, specifically around missile defense, and where does it fall short?
Well, Senator, I'm not in the seat, so I don't have access to all the pertinent information. What I can say is that nuclear modernization is a top priority of the department, as it must be to ensure a credible and effective deterrent. And if confirmed, I would absolutely work with my counterparts in the department, in the executive branch, and in Congress to assure that we have the space capabilities and missile defense capabilities required to ensure that we can effectively conduct nuclear deterrence and response operations, as well as an effective, comprehensive homeland missile defense.
Staying on missile defense, what's your assessment of missile defense of Guam, and how would you enhance protection of the island?
Senator, that's an excellent question. I'm not. I've not really been briefed on the Guam defense architecture. I understand that it is indeed a top priority a top operational priority in the Indo-Pacific region, and a very important program. And so, if confirmed, I would work with all stakeholders to ensure that any issues related to the protection and defense of U.S. forces and the citizens of Guam are addressed to ensure that we have an effective defense.
Thank you. Mr. Rogers, also on Guam, how's the Navy investing in energy resilience there?
Senator, my understanding the strategic importance of Guam is focusing on not only the troops that will be moved there, but the infrastructure that's required on the island. As I sit here today, I don't have all of the details of exactly what's there, but if confirmed, we'll certainly be working with the team in terms of what is required in Guam to support the troops and the families that would potentially be moved there.
So with what you know now, what's your assessment of SMRs or small module reactors to serve as reliable and resilient energy sources for military installations? And do you see that coming anytime soon to somewhere like Camp Lejeune, North Carolina?
Senator, SMRs, I think, are a great potential, and if confirmed, would certainly be pushing hard to work with the teams to understand where we are. I understand multiple services are looking at this, but when we think about our installations, you mentioned Guam, you mentioned Great Camp Lejeune, we need energy independence, and we need it in kind of contested or challenging environments. SMRs could potentially be that solution for us across these installations, so I look forward to learning where we're at, and hopefully we can push on the timeline.
Thank you all. Chairman.
Mr. Rogers, it's not going to be in the next 5 or 6 years, though, is it, on these SMRs? They take longer than that.
Senator, my understanding is there are timelines that are out there. The question is there anything that we can do to move that? There is the identification of pilot locations. There's then understanding the regulatory environment. Certainly welcome Congress's help in navigating that. But it's really sitting down with the technical teams and what can we do and what's the right reactor size that can support our installations.
It certainly sounds tempting and helpful. I don't think there's one operating on the face of the earth right now. Is that correct?
Senator, I believe that to be true. There's multiple different efforts that are underway, and if confirmed, look forward to seeing where we are in that and what does the timelines actually look like.
Well, I hope our dreams can be realized there. Senator Blumenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for your service. You've been nominated for some of the most important jobs in the Department of Defense, and I wish you well and thank you for your willingness to give of yourselves and your family. Mr. Rogers, in 2023, I wrote a bill called the Xavier Sander Act. It was named after a young sailor who tragically died by suicide. He's from Connecticut while living aboard USS George Washington during extended maintenance. Xavier and too many others endured substandard conditions while their ships were in maintenance. They had no air conditioning, inadequate meals, disrupted sleep, little access to basic amenities or mental health support. This law expanded the Navy's authority to provide basic allowance for housing to sailors in similar situations. You're probably familiar with the general predicament or plight of sailors in that kind of situation when their vessels are in dry dock or major overhaul. The bill provided that they could move off ship into commercial housing while their vessels were in that condition. I would like your commitment that you will give priority to this kind of implementation of the Xavier Sanders Act, perhaps meet with Xavier's dad, John, who has maintained an active interest in this issue, and would like to know, if confirmed, how you will ensure full and effective implementation of the Act.
Senator, taking care of our troops is obviously our key responsibility. I'm familiar with the act and the story behind it. Certainly welcome a chance to meet with Xavier's father. More importantly, I also understand, saw a recent letter from the CNO on this issue in terms of being able, given the authorities that Congress has been given, that the SECNAV and commanding officers can decide when they can use BAH for our sailors that are in port. And so the key there is working not only with the military, but also the communities in terms of identifying, clean, comfortable, and safe living conditions for our sailors and Marines. Again, it is a readiness and a retention issue.
Well, maybe I can reach out to you once your confirmation process is complete about following up with the Sander family.
Welcome the opportunity, Senator.
Let me ask you, I know you've been asked a bunch of questions about specific installations. I want to ask about PFAS and the potential for contamination from military installations or bases from PFAS, which is often involved in the fire retardants or other kinds of operations on our bases. Are you familiar with the efforts to contain and stop PFAS contamination that emanates from bases?
Senator, I'm aware of the PFAS discussion. I'm also aware of the potential tie and linkage to AFFF, the firefighting foam, on our installations. So I am aware of the issue.
Are you thinking about efforts to stop the contamination that often flows from our bases or installations?
My understanding, Senator, the PFAS task force is really focused on replacing anything that's in the AFFF in terms of it's providing anything that has PFAS. In terms of existing exposure, if confirmed, would be committed to continuing that effort where the Navy is responsible or the military is responsible on those Navy or Marine Corps installations. And so if confirmed, look forward to working with the team. The most important thing here is that, free, clean drinking water for both our military, their families, and the surrounding communities is critical. And so understanding what exposure we have across installations will be step number one.
I'm sure you're familiar with the PAC Act that provides care and benefits for troops who are the victims of either toxic chemicals or other substances, not only in combat abroad, but also on bases, installations all around the country when they're exposed to those kinds of toxic elements. Now the PAC Act provides some benefits for them without their having to prove that it was directly linked. So I would welcome your cooperation with the VA in trying to mitigate the toxic substances that may cause these kinds of diseases before they occur. I think it's very important. It's cost effective, and I would welcome your focus on that aspect as one who championed the PAC Act for our veterans. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Blumenthal. Senator Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, congratulations on your nominations. Mr. Rogers, I want to start with you. I think I might be able to fit in 2 or 3 questions. I want to talk about the Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff, Arizona. There is a Navy precision optical interferometer there. It's also called NPOI. Have you heard about this?
Senator, I have not.
Okay. Well, basically, this was originally built through a partnership between the Naval Research Laboratory, the U.S. Naval Observatory, and the Lowell Observatory. And it was a partnership for more than 30 years. That collaboration between the 3 organizations supported Navy missions and also did some valuable civilian astronomical research, some astronomy. But recently, the Navy moved to take exclusive control of this precision optical interferometer, effectively ending Lowell's ability to conduct any of their civilian research there. And they've lost access to decades of investment and opportunity.
and the situation has led to some significant administrative and legal costs for the observatory. So if confirmed, I know you don't have a lot of information here. I just want to see if you're willing to work with me so the transition at the optical interferometer site protects the Navy's operational needs, but also preserves some of the trust and fairness and accountability with their long-standing research partners like the Lowell Observatory.
Senator Kelly, if confirmed, you certainly have my commitment to work and understand this issue and work with you on that.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Jewell, the DoD has identified 14 defense critical technology areas. One of those is called trusted artificial intelligence and autonomy. Do you believe that our ability to integrate autonomous artificial intelligence into electronic warfare, EW systems, will be a critical capability in future conflicts?
Senator, yes, I believe that it will. I think the key thing with AI specifically is that the investments that American industry, to include Silicon Valley, have made in AI dwarf what could be invested by the department or even by the entire federal government. So the key is how to leverage the great strides that have been made in AI, but to leverage them in a way that is both safe and responsible for military use.
I agree with you. And the amount of money being invested by the private sector, of course, dwarfs what DoD is going to spend in this specific technology. And I agree this is going to be of critical importance. Machine learning algorithms that enable things like adaptive jamming, spectrum sensing, automated signal classification. This is going to give us potentially a decisive edge on the battlefield. But in order to field these capabilities responsibly, we need to be able to test them rigorously. And in a realistic operational environment, we have that realistic environment at Fort Huachuca, at the electronic proving ground. But we need to be able to protect our ability to conduct this full spectrum testing. And I am very concerned that the proposed cuts to the electronic proving ground could undermine all of that. EPG provides a very unique environment for EW testing. The geography, the federally protected airspace, it allows the military to conduct aggressive offensive jamming tests without interference at very high power. You can't do that in other places. It also has 320 days of great weather every year when there are aircraft involved. No other Army Test and Evaluation Command can replicate the situation they have there. So losing that capability by getting rid of the workforce will set us back in testing and evaluation and ultimately in our operational readiness. So if confirmed, will you commit to working with me to prevent unnecessary cuts to the electronic proving ground and preserve our nation's ability to test and field the next generation electronic warfare systems?
Senator, within the department, there are, of course, a number of unique crown jewel test capabilities, of which you name one. And if confirmed, I will work to maintain our access and ability to test critical technologies, of which, as you rightly mentioned, electronic warfare is one that is most difficult to test in a realistic way.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, thank you for the additional 14 seconds.
And thank you very much. And you used them very well. This does conclude today's hearing. I want to thank our witnesses. I look forward to speaking to some of the family members in just a moment. For the information of committee members, questions for the record will be due to the committee within 2 business days at the conclusion of the hearing, which is now, and we are adjourned.